the week before. I needed to get away from my apartment, the city, and everything. The listing was cheap. It was merely $40 a night for a whole house in rural Pennsylvania. The photo showed a 2-story farmhouse with peeling white paint and a sagging porch. The reviews were sparse, mostly one-liners like "interesting place" and "definitely unique." One review simply recommended to follow the rules. I arrived after dark on a Thursday. The house sat at the end of a dirt road with no other homes visible in any direction. The key was in a lockbox by the front door, exactly where the host said it would be. Inside, the house felt wrong immediately. The layout didn't make sense. Doorways led to rooms that felt too small or too large for their purpose. The kitchen had 2 sinks but no dishwasher. The living room had built-in benches along the one wall with leather straps bolted to them. I found the house manual on the kitchen counter. Most of it was standard stuff about the Wi-Fi password and trash day. But the last rule was printed in bold. It said the basement door must remain locked at all times. Do not attempt to open it under any circumstances. I looked for an explanation, but there wasn't any. The basement door was in the hallway between the kitchen and the living room. It had 3 deadbolts and a padlock. I tested the handle out of curiosity. It was solid and didn't budge. That first night, I fell asleep around midnight on the couch. The bedroom upstairs had the same leather straps on the bed frame, and I couldn't bring myself to sleep there. I woke up around 3 to a scraping sound underneath me. It was like someone dragging something heavy across concrete. I sat up and listened. After a minute, it stopped. I told myself it was pipes or maybe an animal that had gotten into a crawl space. Old houses make noise. The second night I was up, sitting in the kitchen with a coffee, working on job applications I had no motivation to finish. When around 3, the lights flickered before they went out totally. I turned on my phone flashlight and went to check the breaker box in the hallway. Suddenly, a low humming echoed from the floor below. It sounded like a woman's voice. I pressed my ear against the floor to listen better. The humming stopped. A second later, 3 loud jabs were hurled exactly where my ear was. I sat right up, and the lights came back on. I reasoned that the week of sleepless nights after the breakup, coupled with the constant anxiety of being unemployed, had finally started to mess with my senses, and went back to sleep. The next morning, I drove into town for breakfast. The diner was nearly empty. I sat at the counter, and the bartender who doubled as the cook asked if I was just passing through. The second I mentioned I was staying at the farmhouse on Richter Road, his expression changed. He asked how long I was planning to stay. He said most people didn't make it past 2 nights there. I asked what he meant. He leaned in closer. He said the house used to be a part of a private treatment facility back in the 60s, the kind of place families sent relatives they didn't want to deal with. It burned down in 1967, killing 8 patients. The main house survived, but they sealed off the basement where the treatment rooms had been. He said not everyone made it out during the fire. The official count was 8 dead, but the facility had admitted 11 patients that year. 3 were never accounted for. I asked if he was serious. He just shrugged and said the house had been through 6 different owners in the last decade, and none of them stayed long. I drove back and checked the listing again. The host's profile indeed looked concealed, and the account had been created 2 months ago. I started packing, telling myself I'd leave in the morning and take the financial hit on the unused nights. Maybe I could crash on one of my friends' couches for a week or so. I had walked into the kitchen to grab my charger when a sharp, nasty odor filled the air. It smelled like disinfectant mixed with rot. I followed it to the pantry. The back wall looked slightly different from the surrounding wood. I pushed back on it, and a section swung inward. Behind it was another door. This one was old with a simple handle. The smell was stronger here, seeping through the gaps in the frame. It reminded me of hospitals and funeral homes. I twisted the knob. Behind the wood, the stairs led down into darkness. I could hear fabric rustling down there, along with soft padding of bare feet on concrete. I closed the door and backed away. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. That night, I stayed in the car with the engine running and the doors locked. Around 3, I saw a light come on in the upstairs window. I squinted to find the front door open. A thin woman stood in the doorway, wearing a faded hospital robe. From the car, I couldn't make out her face, but I could see she was looking directly at me. She grinned and mouthed at me to go away before she turned and went back inside, slamming the door shut. My body started trembling like a leaf. I didn't wait for dawn to creep in and drove in the dead of night without looking back. I reported it to Airbnb